Battlefield 1 has been out for quite a while now and the player numbers are still pretty high. They're obviously not as high as they were when the game first came out, they were astronomical, but there's still a lot of people playing the game, and there's a lot of arguments saying it's the best Battlefield game that's ever come out. Now I for one do not agree with that, and I can't really say too much about the older Battlefields because I'm not a veteran and I didn't play all the old ones when they were released. But in terms of Battlefield 4, Hardline, and of course Battlefield 1, I'm about as well informed as you can be. I've put in over 1500 hours on Battlefield 4, a couple of hundred on Hardline because obviously that game wasn't really to my sort of liking, and then I've put in about 100 on the full game of Battlefield 1, and then of course I played the alpha, the beta, early access on a different account. You know, I've put in as many hours as pretty much humanly possible until I got bored with it. Now this video is going to be a very honest review on what I think of Battlefield 1 so far. Obviously I did a review on the game after the beta and a bit after the alpha and the early release stuff, so I'd played the game a bit, but obviously I hadn't unlocked everything. This one's going to look at it in a lot more detail. I'm going to try and be as concise as possible because obviously you don't want to stay here for 10 minutes listening to me ramble on about stuff that is of no interest to you. But of course if you don't want to listen to it, I'll just do a concise little overview in the description down below so you can just click on it and save yourself the time from watching this video. So first of all, what do I think of the actual game? Well, I spent the money on the whole shebang, you know, I went for the Ultimate Edition. It's what I was going to do. I was going to use it for YouTube. I knew I was going to play the game anyway because I did enjoy the alpha quite a lot and I enjoyed the beta tremendously. Am I disappointed? No, I'm not. It's exactly what I thought it would be. I knew they were going to go away from Battlefield 4 and the kind of skilled competitive side that that game had. If you ever watched my Battlefield Classified videos I did with Surreal No a while back, you'd know that we predicted this sort of thing was going to happen. Of course what they want to do is make the game available for everybody to play. They're going to smash it for a year, put the game down, pick up the DLC, essentially have to buy the DLC in order to keep on playing the game, and then they're going to buy the new game when it comes out in a couple of years time. The hype for that will start building up in around a year. Now the game itself impressed me from launch. I thought it was very smooth, the gameplay's brilliant, it looks fantastic, the audio's great, overall a brilliant package, worth the money, and if you're really into World War I theme sort of stuff and you want all that realism, there's lots of different options to make it, you know, better. You can turn the HUD off and all this sort of stuff. It's good all round for that sort of thing. The maps are great, the characters look great, the guns are brilliant. You know, it might not be the most historically accurate game in the world, but it is pretty close to a lot of stuff and you can't really experience that in any other game. It's World War I, you know, it's not something that we've seen a lot before. So overall, impressive. Of course, there's dice things in there, so the AA gun, broken, medic revives, broken, spawn in screen, broken, origin, broken. List goes on, lots of things that could be fixed, but of course, again, very few games make it out this far without these problems in them, so hopefully they address them. I was quite unimpressed with the first patch, if I'm honest. It seems like they were just doing a patch so they could bring out their new stuff, you know, that they had planned with this new little game mode and a couple of things, which didn't really take off, but they did patch a couple of things. Mainly the AA gun was nerfed a little bit. The fact that they had to do that anyway was kind of disappointing, because if they tested the game they would have known that the AA gun needed to be nerfed from the very start, but obviously they didn't do that. They just nerfed the howitzer tank because people cried about it, which is fine because it was, again, not balanced at all. But that's just typical DICE. We could expect that. It happened with Battlefield 4. Something's going on where they don't quite... They know what they're doing, of course. Of course they know what they're doing. It's be insulting to say these people are, you know, are idiots. They're not. They know exactly what they're doing, but there's certain stuff that they can do and certain stuff they can't do because of obviously people above them telling them they can't do stuff. And it's not as easy as you think. But there are some things where I think a CTE would be very beneficial. There are people in the community who are committed to this game. I'm one of them. I'd be more than happy to, you know, give pointers and ideas for things that I think that could be changed. But of course, that's not up to me to decide. The bigger YouTubers have more weight in situations like this, so they could maybe do something about it, and I'm sure a couple of them are. There is that argument that bigger YouTubers are just happy to sit there and smile while they get views on their videos, which again, you can't blame them. If that's what they're getting paid to do, that's what they're getting paid to do. My biggest problem with the game as of now is the fact that I feel like I've completed it. Now, as a half decent player in Battlefield 4, if you watch my videos, you know I can do the vehicle stuff pretty decently. I did that in Battlefield 1, pretty much completed all that stuff by the end of the beta. The full game came out, I decided to switch up the tanks a little bit, the meta changed, you know, you were using the big tank A7V instead of the others. Haven't really given the Landship a big go because it's just not good enough. And I feel like I've done all that stuff. I've hit big kill streaks, done it on all the maps. It wasn't hard to master. I even decided to make a couple of guides on it on my channel, and then thought to myself, people don't need guides for this because it's easy. Anybody can take a tank and do a kill streak now in Battlefield, so that's not really something I'm that interested in. The planes, again, are fun, but if you play operations and don't get 100 kills in a full game on the attacking side, or even the defending side, then what are you doing? It's easy to do that sort of stuff. And compared to Battlefield 4, the skill limit for vehicles has been dropped tremendously, which is very disappointing in my eyes, but it's something I can get around because I can go back to Battlefield 4, and I'm quite happy to do that at the minute. As for the infantry, it's a different situation altogether compared to previous Battlefields. It's not super easy, as a lot of people say it is. It's not just Battlefront spray and pray. You have to be clever, you have to pick the correct weapon for the correct situation, and say you are playing with a gun such as the autoloading 8, then you have to be accurate with it. If you're not accurate, you don't get the kill. There are some arguments that the Automatico doesn't have a place in the game, and the support weapons have been buffed too much now, so they are just complete mag dumping weapons, which of course they are, but overall that is something for the balancing thing to sort out, and for me it doesn't really impact the game as a whole all that much. The main problem, however, with this game at the minute, from somebody who's had over 100 hours in it, would be the fact that there's a sense that I've kind of completed the game. And as I said with vehicles, I've completed that just because of the skill-based things. But the fact that there's only a couple of maps that I want to play, because let's be honest, they struggle from bad map design again in Battlefield. I'd say the only good all-round map in the game is Amiens, and we've seen that with a lot of Amiens 24/7 servers. A couple of other nice ones. I think Argon's pretty nice. Sinai's got a couple of, decent things about it. But Monte Grappa and Foul Fortress, these maps are just sniping havens, and I don't like them at all. I think they're terrible maps personally, but they could work for operations a little better, I suppose. But again, you've got that. Do you want to play operations? I think TDM and stuff like that, you'd have to ask someone who plays TDM a lot. I think the spawn systems are better than they were in BF4 because they were a bit of a joke, and the maps could be better laid out, I'm guessing, than Battlefield 4. But I'm not really one to comment on that, but overall I'm not impressed with the map design. I've said this before, not impressed with the maps at all in Battlefield 1. There's a couple of good ones, but my belief is that when the DLC comes out, we're going to see a lot of good content come out, and everyone's going to be raving about it, and that's why everyone's saying, why didn't we get the French in the full game? That's because it's coming out in a DLC, and with these DLCs compared to Battlefield 4, they actually want you to buy these DLCs in order to keep playing the game. In Battlefield 4 Vanilla, you had enough to play. You had enough to keep going on your own. And to be honest, I only play Vanilla Battlefield 4 at the minute, and there's loads of stuff in there I can do. With the DLC for Battlefield 1, it's almost as if they want you to run out of the full game, buy the DLC, play that, run out, buy the next one. And of course, that's the EA way of thinking. They want you to squeeze as much money out of it as possible. Simple fixes, people have been talking about character customization, maybe a couple more weapons, things like that. But let's be honest, if they wanted that in the game, they'd have brought that in at the very start. It's easy to implement. They might implement it, but for me, character customization means nothing. I'd spent 2 minutes on it at the beginning of the game. I want a game that I can play and play a lot. Having some good maps, like, as I said, Amiens was the only one that I really care about. I'd play them again and again, but it feels like I'm already it's tired, the game, for me after 100 hours, and I'm struggling to play more than 2 or 3 games in a row before I feel, I want to go play Battlefield 4 again. So, yeah, slightly disappointed from that angle. One major issue with Battlefield 1 at the minute, and it was brought up in a really good video actually by Darth, a friend of mine. I'll link him down in the description below. You should definitely check out his videos. He brings some really interesting stuff to the table regarding Battlefield games. And it's the skill balancer. And we saw problems with this in Battlefield 4, the way that it balances you depending on your skill. But in Battlefield 1, as far as I'm aware, it actually uses that number that DICE mysteriously come up with, and there is an algorithm to come up with it. It's to do with your score per minute, your kills in the game, your KD, and obviously how well you do in this game and the game before and stuff like that. And it fluctuates up and down. But you're balanced based on that skill, which in my opinion is completely bizarre, because skill doesn't define how good you are at the game. To put this into perspective, Battlefield 4, I played a lot in the helicopter with my mate Simon, or Wonderlight you might know him as. about a year ago. We played a lot in the helicopter, and that's when I first started getting into the attack helicopter. I loved it. My skill before then was probably like 300 or something. I'd only just started playing PC gaming. I wasn't very good at the game. I mean, 300's not bad for if you play a lot of big open conquest maps, but I was playing probably in the tank a bit, you know, just an all-round player. 300 skill. Not fantastic. I start playing with my mate Simon in the helicopter. My skill rockets up to 500 within a couple of games. I'm no better player. I've just played in the gunner seat of the heli. So that just shows you the skill means absolutely nothing. It just depends on what you're doing on the battlefield. If the next map is then obviously an identical map, you're doing the same thing, then of course the skill balancer makes sense. But if it's a different map, a different situation, a different vehicle, the skill balancer makes no sense at all. You're playing, say for Battlefield 1, you're playing Omni on 1 second, and you're in the tank, and you're doing really well, then you get balanced onto the weaker team the next round, but it's Argon, and you can't play infantry to save your life. Well, the balancer doesn't work, and then the game's kind of in a mess where it doesn't know where to put people, adding to the fact that it can't split up squads as well, which is a good thing, but all the good players tend to bulk up into one squad together. So yeah, you're not really going to balance a game that way, and we've seen it in Battlefield 1. It's one of the worst balanced games that I think I've seen in quite a while. Linking back to Battlefield 4, and just again to emphasise how bad skill is in this game, at the minute my skill on my main account sit in between 850 and 900 when I play heli a lot of the time, but I can also keep it just above 800 when I play in the tank. Now, my pilot sits around 500, and he is a better Battlefield player than I am. A much better Battlefield player, especially in the helicopter, than I am. And that again just states, why are you balancing it using skill? It makes zero sense. It just depends what you were doing in the game previously before. Were you farming stuff? Were you sitting back sniping? It doesn't define how good a player you were, it just defines how good a game you had last time out. So overall, am I impressed with Battlefield 1? As I said before, on one level, yes, it's a brilliant game. But there's a lack of content, there's a lack of communication between the community and the actual game itself. I feel much more disconnected with Battlefield 1 than I did with Battlefield 4. Main things I think they should fix with this: bring back the CTE, get that implemented and show that you care about what the community is saying. I know that you say you listen to the forums and things like that, but I want to see a CTE and I want to see developments and testing with players to see whether it works. Also, servers. I know custom servers are going to be difficult to implement now. This is the way they want to do it. I need a private server that only I can join, or I can invite people with a password to join, so I can have my little 8v8 competitive stuff going on, or I can have my 5v5 stuff. Even though I don't think the game's suitable for that, you have to have it in there and give the community an option. There's no reason not to have it. I really don't see that. I understand taking a bit of power away from admins, because you did have admins around in Battlefield 4, but the way it is at the minute, it's quite shocking, to be honest, that they've gone down this route, and I really do feel quite disappointed, and I feel that you're going to lose a lot of the community who are in fact the cornerstones of the community, in my opinion, through this approach. Finally, if I could ask you to leave your opinion of Battlefield 1 so far down in the comments below, it'd be really interesting to see what you guys think, because we've got quite a close-knit community here in terms of Battlefield 4. Battlefield 1, I think a few of you maybe don't really like the game at all. Maybe you want to just play Battlefield 4, go back to BF3, or move on to something else completely different. I'd love to hear your opinions down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.